Well, good morning or good afternoon or good night, depending on where you're joining from. We're glad to have you for our regularly scheduled Thursday XPM webinar series. Today's session is on planning and implementing a successful Atlassian cloud migration. And our hosts today are Jason Kidner, Solutions Architect, SAFe Program Consultant, and Atlassian Expert, along with me, Scott Price, holding the same credentials. And in addition to that, we both bear the scars of multiple Atlassian cloud migrations. And we would like today to spare you some of the pain points of a cloud migration. And we want you to have a better understanding of what's involved in moving from server or data center to the Atlassian cloud. So let's get started with our content for today. So why are we here? We want to start with what's motivating this move to the cloud, to the Atlassian cloud in particular. And so one of the things that we find is that is motivating people to move to the cloud is that Atlassian has taken a cloud-first approach. And so they have made a humongous commitment to the cloud. They're putting a lot of investment into the cloud. And this cloud-first approach is being adopted by lots of Atlassian customers as well. So many of your organizations have probably made a commitment to put as much in the cloud as possible. That's happening a lot these days. And one of the things we also find is that Atlassian is putting the best features into cloud first. And sometimes they're putting the best features into cloud only. So we're getting things in the Atlassian cloud that aren't available on a server or data center. And we're going to post in the chat a link to give you access to the Atlassian Roadmap, and we've got it filtered to the cloud version. And so this is a really great resource to help you see what is coming to the cloud and the general time frame that it's coming to the cloud. So it's a really helpful thing to keep an eye on what features are coming that you might be interested in to help you kind of plan the timeline of your migration. Another thing that we see is there are a lot of other tool integrators that are much quicker to implement in cloud because Atlassian has really robust APIs. It's very easy to connect to Atlassian cloud products. And so we see a lot more options these days in integrating to cloud. And those integrations usually happen much quicker. Another big motivator is the big announcement that Atlassian made last October, which was that they were going to end the sales and support of server. That happened in October of last year. And then the end of new license sales happened in February of this year. And next year in February, on Groundhog Day, there will be no more upgrades or downgrades possible, meaning whatever user tier you're in, you're locked into that. And then February, a year later, 2023, end of new app sales for existing server customers. And then finally in February 2 of 2024, the end of support for server. And so Atlassian has said that they are going to go into the cloud first. They're going to keep a data center around for larger customers that want to stay on premise. They know there are security concerns for a lot of clients. And so data center is going to be around for the duration as far as we know. But you've got two choices now. So this end of life of server is motivating a lot of people to move to the cloud or to consider data center. That's one of the options as well. XPM has a lot of expertise in helping people migrate to the cloud. We've got small customers and large customers that have moved. It seems like as soon as as Atlassian opens up the number of users you can put in the cloud, we get more larger migrations. So the last one that I did was about a 6,000 user migration, and we presented that at the Atlassian Summit. So you can, if you were at the summit, you saw some details around that. And we also have expertise with multiple instances. We had a recent big enterprise cloud migration with multiple instances that were separate instances, separate business units, but all organized under one enterprise organization. So we've got experience in all those, and we'd be glad to help you with your particular migration. So let's talk a little bit about what's in scope for the cloud migration. This journey to the cloud involves several products, and Jira Software, Bitbucket, Jira Core, Crowd is in view because as Crowd goes away on premise, when you move to the cloud, that becomes Atlassian Access. So that's the reason that Crowd is in scope here. And Jira Service Management, formerly Jira Service Desk, is in scope for cloud migration. Bamboo Server is not in the cloud, but it is available to an extent in Bitbucket pipelines, and they keep improving that product. So if you're on Bamboo Server, you can take a look at Bitbucket Cloud now and perhaps get your needs met. So it's worth a look. Bamboo is now available on the data center version. They did not have a data center version until just recently, August of this year. And then also you've got to consider the Atlassian Marketplace apps when you do a cloud migration, because the Atlassian Cloud is a much different architecture than server or data center. And so the Atlassian Marketplace apps vary greatly between what is available. And so you have to really consider strongly if the apps that you're using on premise today are going to be available in the cloud. And you also have to consider what the functionality gap is, because there are different features and functionalities in different marketplace apps based on what they offer on premise or what they offer in the cloud. Now, out of scope, you cannot migrate Fisheye or Crucible to the cloud. Some of the functionality of each of Fisheye, which is searching, code searching, and diff tooling, and code review for Crucible, some of that functionality is built into Bitbucket. So you might be satisfied with leaving Fisheye and Crucible behind and moving to Bitbucket in the cloud. Those products are in basic maintenance mode, which means there's not going to be any further feature development on either Fisheye or Crucible. So if you're on one of those products, it might be a good time to at least try Bitbucket Cloud and see if it might meet your needs at this time. So let's talk a little bit about the platforms. We have now two distinct platforms available, cloud and data center, with server going away. And so here's a side-by-side comparison between cloud and data center. And you can see that we're up to, on cloud, we're up to 20,000 user instance if you want. And I expect that to continue to increase. They keep increasing it every few months. It wasn't long ago when 5,000 users were the most that we could actually get in a cloud instance, but that continues to grow. One of the things that can hit you is the undocumented cloud limits. We had before this limit was raised to 20, we did run into a limit where a client had 5,000 active users, but they had over 25,000 total users that were being migrated for historical data purposes, and we hit an undocumented limit there. So that's one of the things that can kind of hit you when you do your move to the cloud. Then you have the ability to have unlimited instances in cloud, similar to you have on data center, and there's no user limit on data center. As far as reliability, of course, in data center you have the ability to cluster, so you have constant uptime, and you can have one application node go down while you still have multiple app nodes still up serving the application. And you manage that. In the cloud, you have Atlassian managing that back-end infrastructure, and they are committing to up to 99.9% uptime, and there's SLAs depending on the product tier that you're on. Of course, with security and compliance, that's one of the biggest reasons that people choose to stay on premise. But we do have a lot more advancements happening in cloud to give you security, and so we're going to put a little information in the chat in just a moment about security, but feel free to browse the Atlassian security website to get your InfoSec team comfortable with what's happening now in cloud. One of the biggest changes that's come recently is GDPR compliance, and a change in the last year and a half to the way users are handled in compliance with GDPR. And so there's a huge difference between the way users are handled in server and data center versus the cloud. And if you haven't looked in a while, take another look and see if your InfoSec team might be a little bit happier with what's happening in cloud security now. And then in terms of governance, controls on data center, that's in your court. Atlassian is managing that. And then with apps, there's a huge difference between apps in cloud versus data center. And in data center, the architecture is vastly different, and the functionality is vastly different. There are things that you can do on server or data center with an app that you cannot do in the cloud. And so keep that in mind as you're looking at your cloud migration. And with the cloud side, one of the big hindrances has been you can't borrow Atlassian server. With the data center or server, an add-on manufacturer can borrow your server's horsepower. In the cloud, that's not possible. So the app providers had to build their own server infrastructure to deliver the application. And Atlassian, over the last year and a half, has come out with a tool called Forge, which allows a serverless platform to deliver apps in the cloud. And so that is really enhancing the speed to new apps being delivered in the cloud. And so if you haven't taken a look at cloud apps in a while, you might want to take another look. There's a new feature out for cloud apps. It's a category really of apps called Cloud Fortified. And we're going to post in the chat a link to the Cloud Fortified. It's already in there. And so it's the marketplace at Atlassian.com. And it's just already filtered for you based on Cloud Fortified. And this Cloud Fortified is a program that helps you find add-ons that are more secure, more reliable, and that are supported. So this is the new gold standard in add-ons. So take a look at Cloud Fortified apps to help you with your consideration of moving to the cloud. So that's the big difference between data center and cloud. And I want to post another chat for you just to kind of help you see what is available in server and data center versus cloud. And so we've got a link that we're going to paste in there for you next. And so this is a good resource for you to have to evaluate your move to the cloud. See what data center gives you that server does not, if you're comparing data center from server. And so that'll be a good resource for you to do your comparison. All right, the next slide is really just a graphic with kind of a surprising statistic of 80% of the enterprise workloads will shift to the cloud by 2020. Now that comes from Gartner, and it was in an article that I read called "Death of the Data Center." And Gartner's predicting by 2025, 80% of all enterprises will migrate entirely away from on-premise data centers. And that's a pretty surprising figure, but that's happening right now. They're moving to, if not to a complete SaaS product, they're moving data centers into co-location, hosting, cloud hosting, and so forth. And so there's a big move among the industry to take all of our products to the cloud, and that's motivating some of this cloud migration. Now, another thing that's motivating the move is that the industry is moving away from perpetual licenses. And that's what's happened to Atlassian's server products. They were on a perpetual license model. And that means that you could buy a server license and you wouldn't have to pay another dime forever unless you wanted support. And so if you wanted support from Atlassian, including upgrades, the ability to upgrade to a newer version, then you had to pay. But if you liked the version you were on, you could just keep that and hold on to that forever and just keep using that. And that was very common in years past, but the perpetual license is going away. And one of the reasons for that is there's no consistent income stream to support operations. If people aren't renewing their support, or if they're not upgrading, then the software company doesn't have an income stream to help support the software. And so that's one of the big reasons for the shift to cloud and data center. There's a consistent income stream, and the company has the finances coming in to be able to continue to support the software going forward. Okay, let's take a look at some cloud tier levels. If you haven't taken a look at cloud in a while, we do have 4 tiers available now. The free tier is really a trial tier. It's you can have up to 10 users. I think for Jira Service Management, you can have up to 3 users on the free tier. But it's really just for you to kind of get in and try, see if you like it. And it's also something that you can use personally. I actually use a free version of Confluence personally, and it works really well. You miss out on some of the features, but it's certainly possible to do that. And but most of our people, we find, are in the standard and premium tiers. The pricing between standard and premium is a significant difference. And so you really have to consider the benefits that you're getting in premium versus standard. And you can see a pretty good sized list. With Jira specifically, one of the big reasons we see for people going to premium over standard is the ability to get advanced roadmaps, which are cross-project roadmaps. Standard would have single project roadmaps available. Premium would have cross-project roadmaps in the advanced roadmaps tool, which is built into premium, used to be an add-on. And then you have the enterprise tier. The enterprise tier is really for large organizations that want to group under one single organization, but you can have as many instances as you want. So for a large organization, you can spin up an enterprise cloud organization, and you can have different business units have their own Jira instance where they manage everything themselves. And all they have to really agree on is user management, and that's done at the organization level. So take a look at the new cloud tiers if you haven't looked at it in a while. One of the things that's not on this graphic that's fairly recent is that data residency, which on this graphic is only available in the enterprise version, that is now available on all of the paid tiers. It's not available on the free tier, but it is available on standard, premium, and as was always available on the enterprise tier. And we do have now some changes to Jira Service Management. Their tiers were not real clear for a while, but their tiers are becoming a little bit more clear as they have continued to add some new features, including the database tool Insight. And so Jira Service Management is worth a look today at their new tiers. And by the way, XPM does have a half-day Jira Service Management class. If you're interested in that, go to our website, xpm.com, and you'll be able to see the classes that we provide. Jira Service Management is one of the best tools is in terms of recent improvements in the Atlassian Cloud that I can identify with. It's gotten some great features over the last 6 months, and so it's worth a new look. I wanted to talk briefly about licensing. If you are taking a look at the cost of going from server to cloud, or even from data center to cloud, one of the things that we can help you with is licensing. That's one of the benefits that we bring to our clients. And if you're concerned about the cost you're paying, whatever license you're on, we can probably help you. We've been able to save a lot of our clients money on their licensing. And so, especially if you're buying it directly from Atlassian, please reach out to us. We'd be glad to help you with that. One of the things that I'd like to point out here that the premium and enterprise offer is that it's a really valuable resource. Most of our clients really like it, and it's the Sandbox. And so you have, with the premium and enterprise tier, you get a free Sandbox, which is just an instance that's available for you to do some testing. And that's a really valuable resource. And along with that come release tracks. Again, not shown on this graphic, but release tracks allows you to schedule the changes that are coming in cloud. You know, today releases are coming just constantly in cloud. And so you wake up one day and something's changed in your cloud environment, and it can be surprising. But with the combination of the Sandbox and release tracks, you're able to schedule those changes, and you're able to get a preview of that in your Sandbox environment. And you can schedule those, for instance, every 2 weeks if you want to, give you time to evaluate those changes that are coming in your Sandbox environment, make any change management decisions, communications that you need to, so that people understand what change is happening and when. And so that can be another reason to consider going to the premium or the enterprise tier. That can be really helpful, especially for larger organizations or where change can be particularly disruptive. And there across the bottom, you see Atlassian Access. Just a note that Atlassian Access does come with enterprise automatically. But if you're wanting to use Atlassian Access for helping you with SSO, if you want people to be able to use single sign-on, or if you want to be able to provision users and groups automatically from your identity provider, Atlassian Access is the tool for you. You can think of it as the cloud version of Crowd. And so that, though, has to be licensed separately for free, standard, or premium, comes along with enterprise automatically. And so let's look at Atlassian Access briefly. The key for most companies migrating to the cloud is user migration. I mean, that's a really big factor. And Atlassian Access is really worth an early look when you're considering a cloud move to the cloud, especially if you've got a fairly large organization. One of the more complex pieces of a cloud migration is typically users, depending on how users are managed today, because on premise in either server or data center, your primary identifier is a username, and some of your users may not even have email addresses. In the cloud, they have to have an email address. And so synchronizing user names to email addresses is one of those big data prep things that you need to take care of for a cloud migration. And Atlassian Access is an enhancement to that. It's where you can actually tie to your identity provider and actually provision users into your cloud environment to the organization, and you can give them the groups that you want them to be in, and you can onboard and offboard with your IDP. So Atlassian Access is a great tool to help with that. So SSO, two-factor authentication, user provisioning and deprovisioning, cloud access, security broker integration, organization audits, those are all features that come along with Atlassian Access. And if you've got very many users to manage in your cloud environment, it's definitely worth a look, and probably a must-have. All right, I'm going to kick it to Jason to tell you a little bit about Expium.
All right, thanks, Scott. So just a little commercial break here. Expium is a platinum solution partner with Atlassian. So we're the highest tier of solution partners, meaning we had to jump through a lot of hoops. And all of our consultants are Atlassian certified, and we have a lot of experience dealing with all the Atlassian products, many different types of consultings over the years. One of our core competencies is training. So we have these weekly free webinars, and we also provide boot camps for Jira and Confluence, and lots of customized trainings that we've done with many clients around all the different Atlassian products. So yeah, again, you can look on our website at expium.com to find out all the upcoming webinars and training opportunities. We also do a lot of consulting, including these cloud migrations, but we also, you name it, anything between standing up a Jira or Confluence instance to customized scripting and automation, really anything within Atlassian product we can help you with. We also have a sister company called Oasis Digital Solutions that allows us to do a lot of custom development with clients. So these are, so we can lean on these full stack developers from Oasis to help with, again, custom front ends, customized solutions within your products. So really about anything you need help with, we can offer that. And as Scott mentioned earlier, we do provide licensing and can often provide some discounts that you couldn't get just going to Atlassian directly. So even if you weren't using us for support services or some other sort of engagement, we can help you with licensing at no extra cost. And I forgot to mention, we're based in St. Louis, Missouri in the US. All right, so getting back to cloud migration, we're going to talk about benefits and differences between, like, from moving from server or data center to the cloud. So there are a number of benefits. Scott's already mentioned a number of them so far, but one benefit that Atlassian likes to highlight is extensibility. And this basically means there's a lot more integrations with the cloud products, with other cloud products, other integrations with other, like Slack and Zoom and things like that. There's much more that you'll find out of the box with the Atlassian cloud products. And we're gonna post in the chat just one of probably many things out there on Atlassian that mentions these integrations. They're really excited about the integrations they're offering now. In addition to this, they also have mobile apps that, if you want to find your Jira, your Confluence data on the move, they do offer mobile apps that could come in handy for some of your workers. Another big benefit is reduced maintenance costs, just overall cost of shifting to the cloud. So you can see here in the cloud, you just have some administration. You'll still have your Atlassian administrators, but the subscription cost is going to be a little less. You're not going to have to maintain all of that hardware cost or subscriptions to AWS or Azure. That's all going to fall on Atlassian, and you're going to pay for that with your license fees now for Atlassian Cloud. So you can see here the difference in cost, and there's a lot of hidden costs again with hosting your server data center instances that, again, you would gain a lot when you're going to the cloud. And just by way of just a comparison, there is a comparison tool. Let's see here. Let me make sure I get this up here. So here's something that Atlassian offers those who are considering moving to the cloud, and we'll post this in the chat room as well. But it's, yeah, what can cloud save you? And so it's a pretty basic user interface, but just imagine one use case would be you have Jira Server with 1,000 users, and you can estimate here, choose the estimate, you can see here that Atlassian's doing a hypothetical estimation, again, of what it's going to cost you on an annual basis to continue to stay on server for 1,000 users versus shifting to the cloud. And again, you kind of see that you're just paying these subscription services to cloud versus your operational costs plus licenses. So, and you can adjust this to decide if you're going to go to standard or to premium. And there's also, it handles Jira Service Management and Confluence use cases as well. So have a look at that. We'll post that in the chat so you can kind of get a sense, an estimate on how much you're going to save going to the cloud. A few other benefits. One is licensing improvement. When you shift to the cloud, licenses fall under one umbrella, including add-ons. So it's much easier to understand your licensing. It's much easier to add, to do user upgrades or downgrades, to add apps like in the middle of a cycle. Like if you're on annual cycle, it's very, very simple to go through us, or potentially even to go to Atlassian directly, if that's what you're doing, and make changes to your licensing that can be co-termed and prorated depending on where you are in your billing cycle. So again, it's much simpler. There's also the differences with cloud products, and some add-ons are now included in premium and enterprise. Like for instance, advanced roadmaps is included if you shift to the premium or enterprise tiers, and that might eliminate the need for a license for another timeline add-on. So there could be improvements there, some cost savings for you as well there. And then, as Scott mentioned earlier, if you do shift and you go for the enterprise level tier, you get Atlassian Access included at no extra cost. So, which most companies we see that are migrating. In fact, I don't think there's one that we haven't actually implemented Atlassian Access for when they've migrated, because they've needed the single sign-on and the user provisioning functionality that they were used to on-prem. So a number of licensing improvements. The migration to cloud is also offers the opportunity for database cleanup. So oftentimes when we're working with clients, there's just things they don't like about their current instance. They have a lot of extra schemes and extra database elements that they just want to clean up. So I like to think of it as like if you're moving house, you have to go through all your stuff and pack it up or decide I'm going to donate it or just throw it away. So same thing with a cloud migration. You're looking through everything. And we see this with database elements, especially with users. You're going to have to probably do a lot of cleanup with your users and groups, again, to make sure they shift over correctly to the cloud. So great opportunities for system and database cleanups. And then we always like to talk about governance when we're working with clients. And whether you're doing governance with your Atlassian tools or maybe you're not, and this could be a great time too to start to implement some sort of governance around your Atlassian tools. And we have a number of, we do a webinar every other month around governance, and we post some of these on our YouTube channel. So we're going to post some of those URLs around governance out here in the chat as well, just to start to get a sense of what is governance, when we use that word when it comes to Atlassian products. Okay, so there's also a lot of differences that we're going to go over, and most of them I think you're going to really appreciate. So first, as Scott mentioned a couple times earlier on, there's big differences with marketplace apps. Again, the architectures of server and data center versus cloud are very different. The APIs are different. Therefore, the cloud apps are going to be different in what the features they offer. Maybe they don't offer some of the same features. Some of these apps that you're used to on server or data center, they might not even exist in the cloud because of just, again, the changes in architecture. So one of the things we see, and one of the really, really important parts of the migrations we've done with clients, is to discover their apps and to make decisions around the apps. And there's been a lot of work and customization depending on the apps you're using, especially apps like Script Runner or JMWE, things like that are doing scripting. You have to find other ways to take that same functionality and have it done in the cloud. So this is a really important part of migrating. And one thing I'll just show you here is there are, to help with this, Atlassian is providing these migration assistants. They have a Jira migration assistant and also a Confluence Cloud migration assistant. And with each of those add-ons, they're free add-ons you can install on your server data center instance. They have an app assessment feature. And here's the output of one from one of our playgrounds. And so it looks up and it sees all your add-ons, and it makes a note of whether these add-ons actually exist in the cloud, because some may not. A few of these, it says contact the vendor because they may or may not exist in the cloud. And then it also notes, can this app be migrated? Is there a path for migration? And oftentimes the answer is no. And we've had to work through and really solution a way to migrate an app to the cloud, depending on how a client's using it. So there's a lot of decision points around these marketplace apps. And you'll notice too, as you get into the cloud, that Atlassian's seen a consolidation of their marketplace vendors. So a number of vendors are acquiring other apps and kind of becoming larger and larger. Atlassian even is acquiring, over the years, has acquired a number of apps and has brought those apps into their different cloud tiers. For instance, they acquired Mindville's Insight, And now they've packaged that insight, not as an add-on anymore in cloud, but they're including it in their Jira Service Management Premium and Enterprise levels. So there's been a lot of changes. There'll probably be a lot of changes in the future with apps, and these vendors, once they heard that announcement last year, they had to start working on ways to migrate and to allow their features to be available in the cloud. So vendors are constantly adding migration paths and trying to work out ways with Atlassian to make it easier for clients, their customers, to migrate the add-ons to the cloud. So there's been a lot of changes in this space, and we'll see a lot more over the next year. So now I'm going to get into a little bit of demo mode, where we're going to actually show you some of the differences in the tool when it comes to user and group management. We'll start there. We'll also show you some of the differences with Jira and Confluence Cloud that compared to what you're used to in server or data center. So one big difference is user and group management. So as Scott mentioned earlier, we see the shift in users as a big thing we need to discover and to solution with migrations, because with cloud, users are known by their email address. There's no notion of a username anymore like there was in server and data center. So as users shift to the cloud, they're all based around, they get an Atlassian cloud based on their email address. And when you come into the UI for handling just overall administration in the cloud, you see a very different UI compared to server and data center. And this UI has actually changed really within the last month or two. Atlassian has adjusted even their cloud UI for user and group and other high-level site administration. And so what you're seeing here is even like really the latest and greatest that all cloud customers are starting to get used to. So, but you see you have this user and group management across the whole enterprise. So as many different instances that you have, you're going to have one place to manage all your users and groups, which is a really great feature. And so these users, you can see them here. You can see their email address. You can then drill into these users and see which products they're on, which groups they're on, all in one place. This is there's some really nice changes they've made here for user management. This is obviously just a very basic demo that we've set up. You also have the ability to see all the groups out here, how many members are in them, which products these groups have access to, and you can drill into more details as well. So, and notice now with this new setup, they're actually creating, when you stand up new cloud instances, they're creating these groups for access, or access groups specifically for the site you're on. Again, imagining an enterprise level where you might have different instances and they would each need their own separate product access groups. So, and these groups as well, end users, can all be synced to your Active Directory, whatever that looks like, with via Atlassian Access. And then a lot of the tabs up here, you as a site admin would come in if you're, think of it as the highest level of administration within your Atlassian Cloud products. You have access to all these other overviews around your sites, again, your directories, and a lot of these get unlocked. A lot of these features over here get unlocked when you have Atlassian Access, or when you upgrade to a premium or enterprise level. So a lot of these start to be available, and they'll note if you can use it or not without access. So a lot of big changes you're going to have to get used to with user and group management. You're also going to have changes with UI, a lot of UI UX changes. So for instance, I'll just kind of go through this just very high level. This is the Jira Cloud, Jira Software Cloud. This happens to be the premium version of it because it includes advanced roadmaps. And just by way of just looking into a given project, there's boards, there's issues. A lot of this is similar to server data center, but one big difference is if we go into one of these issues and we go to this sort of screen, you can see the view screen is very, very different in cloud. So really completely different. Your buttons on where you're going to make attachments or link issues, or even to transition your workflow statuses, are different over here in the cloud. So again, something your users are going to have to get used to, and there's going to be training involved in that. And then again, where you see fields, where they show up is going to be different as well. And you have a lot more customization around the look and feel of this screen in the cloud. One nice thing when you're on a board in the cloud, let me go to the sprint board. When you click on one of these cards in the cloud, instead of having a little frame that pops out on the side, you now actually see a full view screen. And these view screens actually, it also becomes your edit screen as well. Everything that's editable is going to be editable in line. So you can come in here and you can make updates to anything that's editable on the view screen. And even as you can see here, the view screen pops up when you click on a card on a board. So there's some really nice features there. On Confluence, we'll just have a quick look over here. In Confluence Cloud, again, you have a completely different editor. And this, when you're migrating from Confluence Server Data Center to cloud, the editor is still going to be the same. You're going to get this legacy editor in the cloud for all your migrated pages. So all the things you're used to are going to still be there for those migrated pages. But when you create brand new pages, like I'll just go ahead and show this one and edit it. When you come in and you start to create brand new pages within the cloud, you're going to get a very different editor. So you see a different toolbar up here. Tables obviously look the same. There's a lot of different changes. Macros, the list of macros that you're going to have available is going to be different. How they operate is going to be different. So a lot of, this might be one of the biggest things that we've seen with migrations is how those Confluence Cloud pages migrate and come over. And I'll mention some of the challenges with that shortly. Some other differences very quickly, Jira Automation. So Atlassian acquired automation for Jira and they packaged it in to the cloud tiers. So let me go back to Jira here. And so project admins or Jira admins can establish what are called rules out here in the project admin area. Let's see. So there's an automation section. And again, this comes packaged in with the tiers. You do have limits on the amount of executions when you're in standard, and you pretty much have unlimited use when you get to premium and enterprise. But this allows you to set up some nice UI, low scripting rules here to do a lot of things. This is very, very powerful. So with this, you may not even need JMWE or Script Runner or some other add-ons you've used in the past for automation. You might be able to do everything going forward with automation for Jira. So that's packaged in to Jira Cloud and it's really, really powerful. As we mentioned earlier, advanced roadmaps, if you're used to using that on server or data center, it is available in the cloud. You do have to, though, get the premium or enterprise tier levels. It doesn't come with free or standard. And if we go back here, it shows up in a little bit different area. It shows up under the plans dropdown. And again, not going to go into depth, but there is a different UI in the cloud for advanced roadmaps. It does look pretty similar to server and data center, but it's a slightly different. They keep improving this and putting a lot of investment into this. So, and there's a couple of other bells and whistles that are pretty nice as well over here. But you do get this with premium and enterprise. Jira Cloud also comes with what are called Jira Work Management projects. This is a rebranding of the Jira Core or the business projects that you've been used to in server or data center. And again, this was just rebranded just in the cloud. So this functionality isn't in server or data center, but you can go in here and again, I'll just give you a little glimpse into a Jira Work Management project. It's different than software. It doesn't have Kanban and Scrum boards, but it does give a number of other features here for your business teams that might be working in spreadsheets to come in here and start to get their data in Jira along with all your other teams. So there's list views, there's a basic board view, there's a calendar view that shows issues based on their start and due dates on the calendar, and a couple of other features here. that, again, this is a pretty new change to business projects within the cloud, but there are a lot of great features with that. I won't actually show it, but there are something called team managed projects in the cloud. And these, again, are set up to be used where to take maybe the load off your Jira admins, or maybe you're just a smaller group and you want your teams, your project admins to be able to customize a project and not have to lean on a Jira admin to make changes to workflows and screens and things like that. So in the cloud, Atlassian's offering these team managed projects. There's a lot to maybe say about this. They are kind of a separate side of the database from company managed projects that you're used to in server data center. So we would caution the use of these, but again, there could be some good use cases for them. And then finally, with differences, there are major changes, again, in the architecture from server data center to cloud. And so there are some limitations in the cloud. Like there's a limitation around exporting issues from your issue navigator. You're limited to 1,000 rows for that. There's also just a lot of changes with the Confluence Cloud editor and Confluence Cloud in general, where especially a lot of your customizations you might have done in server data center around HTML and layouts and things like that, and some macros, they're often deprecated in cloud, and we've seen that. So you might have some real savants in your Confluence server. They might be pretty frustrated in Confluence Cloud, just especially with a lot of customization. So there's things to discuss around the move to Confluence Cloud with that. And then there's just, again, changes in add-ons and that could be frustrating, but there's often some great workarounds that we can help with, or might be available with some of the cloud features as well. So with that, I want to allow some time here to wrap up, as Scott's going to take you through what a migration roadmap would look like.
Yes, thanks, Jason. So we have a basic plan that we follow with the cloud migration, and those basic steps are to assess, to plan, to prep, to test, to migrate, and to launch. And we highly recommend getting this process started sooner rather than later. So the assessment phase, you're going to be, in this phase, you're going to be comparing cloud versus server, comparing functionality, comparing cost of server versus cloud, or data center versus server and cloud. So get your cost comparisons out of the way, and do a functionality check. Understand what the gaps are between functionality. Get your InfoSec team involved. Get them comfy with cloud security. We posted a link to Atlassian's trust and security section earlier in the chat. So get your InfoSec team involved. Make sure that you have them on board with the cloud migration. Evaluate the user management changes, like Jason showed us a little bit ago. There are some key things about how you manage users that will definitely pivot in the cloud. And then get into the planning phase. And so this is where you're going to be assessing the size and the complexity of your data, including apps. So apps are a humongous factor when making a cloud migration. That's going to be one of the more complex pieces of the puzzle. And during this planning phase, you want to determine the best strategy. So there's a lift and shift, an optimized lift and shift, a phased approach, which is essentially project by project, or start fresh, with a greenfield approach. And all these different methodologies have pros and cons. And if you need some help kind of walking through and comparing those alternatives, we'd be glad to help. Reach out to us, and we'd be glad to help you with planning your cloud migration. But in the end, develop a plan of how you want to do this migration. And then you have some preparation to do. You've got to prep your team, you've got to prep sites, you've got to prep your data, particularly, look at user data. And whenever we talk about prepping sites, we, on a large cloud migration, we will use as many as 10 or 12 Jira cloud sites as we're doing test migrations. And so you need to also consider your on-premise sites and what sites you're going to use for the practice runs and so forth. And then test. In this test phase, you're going to test, and test again. As I said, we use up to 10 or 12 different cloud sites doing multiple migration attempts, because there are very frequent changes in cloud environments, and things could change from one week to the next. And you need to have a high degree of confidence that your migration plan actually works. So you want to test, and test again. And then ultimately you want to actually do the migration, pick the date, arrange Atlassian support. If you're migrating over a weekend, you want to make sure that Atlassian support is prepared to help you over that weekend. You might consider freezing the cloud updates during your migration so that Atlassian doesn't change your cloud instance in the middle of your migration, for instance. And so that's an option that you can consider. You want to communicate to your organization, train your users, and on the functionality changes that they're going to experience. And then ultimately launch it, monitor and mitigate go live issues, reflect it, and absolutely celebrate when you get to the end of that. And so that's your basic roadmap for getting to the cloud. And again, we'd be glad to help you with that if you want to reach out to us. But another consideration is just the timeline itself. And so how long does this take to do a cloud migration? So it really depends on the complexity and the size of your migration. So if you've got a small site with 50 to 100 users, it's not going to take you very long. It's going to take just a matter of a week or two, possibly. You could do it that quick. On up to those large instances of 5,000. We need another bullet on there now that you can go up to 20,000. Those are going to be much more complex migrations and may take 12 months or so to accomplish, depending on the complexity. And this complexity really is based upon the apps that you're using, the number of apps, the complexity of those apps, the dependency between apps, and your users' dependency on those apps, automations or customizations, which are very common in server, your dependency upon third-party inputs or outputs, the number of projects and custom fields. All of these things play into the time it's going to take. So plan early, plan ahead, get started early, and find out what all's involved in your migration, and then make it happen. And whenever we do a migration, we actually like to use Atlassian tools to manage our cloud migrations. And so this is just an example of a Kanban board that we use that we rely on to help us track the work that's involved. So build a backlog for your migration, all the steps that need to take place, rank those in order, and use a Jira board, a Kanban board, or Scrum if you like, to make that work happen. And then we also like to use Confluence and advanced roadmaps to keep track of documentation. Confluence is great for our project reporting about how we're doing, and keeping various different artifacts of the migration. So Jira and Confluence and advanced roadmaps, those three in particular, are great for managing your cloud migration. And I think we're about ready to see if there are any questions.
Yeah, so if you have any questions, there's a Q&A section of the Zoom call. You can add those questions there, and we'd be happy to answer them. I know we've covered a lot of ground. There is a lot of ground to cover with the cloud migration. But yeah, please, we'll be monitoring that. And while you're thinking about a question here, just wanted to note on this final slide, if you are interested in asking other questions, or you have a server data center instance that you want to migrate to the cloud, please reach out to Scott and I. You can see our email addresses here on this page. So yeah, we would love to chat with you. Again, we've done a number of these, and we've got a few more coming up later this year. And so we have a lot of expertise to help with this. I want to note too, you can see on this this final slide, we do have other webinars coming up, and some boot camps, Jira and Confluence boot camps coming up later this year that you can see. And you can always find out more information about these on our website at xvm.com. But I do want to just flag up this one, this really different special event coming up that I think all of you, if you are considering a migration, would be very interested in. That we have an interactive workshop around planning your Atlassian cloud migration on November 18th. This is on the front page of our XPM website. It's going to be no cost. You can register for it there, but it's going to be very interactive. Scott and I are going to be very much a part of this. We're going to be walking through some of the stuff that we talked about on this webinar, but specifically where you're going to actually be doing exercises around your own specific cloud migration. There's going to be workbooks that you're going to take away with a Confluence space that's going to have a lot of assessment and a lot of things that you're going to be doing within the workshop yourself. So you can come away from that really having a good understanding of what is going to be involved in your own cloud migration. So this is a real special event. Seating is limited, so please, please register for that very soon if you want to join for that. So
we have a couple of questions, Jason.
Yes.
I'll tackle this first one from Derek. And his question is, can I turn off user access to Trello or other products with Access? Seems you can't stop users adding free products to their accounts. And the answer is, with Atlassian Access, yes, you can. And in fact, you can do that with managing the domain. So essentially what you have to do is you have to verify the domain that users are utilizing to log into their Atlassian Cloud account. So as an example, ours is xpm.com. If I'm logging into any Atlassian Cloud site with scott.price@xpm.com, once XPM claims that domain with Atlassian, they prove to Atlassian that they own that domain, then they can restrict my access to Atlassian Cloud products. So to answer your question is yes, absolutely.
And
then we have a second question. You want to take that one, Jason?
Yeah, sure. So we have another question here. Could I consider a sandbox like test environment for the first migration attempt? So what we would say is you can spin up free cloud instances of Jira and Confluence, that you can use for 30 days. So what we often do is for those first, second, third attempts, depending on the complexity, is to just spin up these free instances that, again, can just be used and then they'll just go away. So we would highly recommend using 1, 2, 3, however many you need for that. And then potentially your final pre-migration test migration, you could, if you have premium or enterprise, you could leverage your sandbox environment, because then you have a sandbox environment that's going to be very similar to production anyway. So that would save kind of copying over prod to a sandbox. So we've seen clients do that, and that's worked really well for them. So it looks like that is the rest of our questions, and we are actually at time now. So thank you very much for attending, and hopefully you got a lot of value out of this. And again, please reach out to us if you do have any other questions or want to talk with us about helping you with your own journey to the Atlassian Cloud. So hope you have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Bye-bye.